And I'm John Paris. I appreciate you guys coming down here this evening to join us. Asian American Group's been in existence for about 20 years. We've been doing interviews for about the last 6 for state assembly, state senate, and other judicial races. We plan on doing our endorsements. Literally, we're going to finish them up after we complete all the interviews this evening. And we will send them out hopefully tomorrow by lunch. We know that early voting does start on Saturday. In addition to informing the candidates of our endorsements, we will also be getting ad space in various newspapers. Up until about 2 hours ago, I thought the ad space was donated to us. Evidently, we pay for it. I didn't realize that. But we also have several thousand email addresses amongst the people up here, and we blast out to them, please vote for these particular individuals. It's an off-cycle year, and we're talking about a primary. There aren't a lot of sexy races driving people to the polls, so we just want to perhaps give a little more information to Asian Americans or anyone who really wants to listen regarding the backgrounds of the various individuals in these races. So now that you know a little bit about us, we'd like to know a little bit about you. And I'll start with the person furthest to my left. So Nakia, why did you decide to run for this particular race at this particular time? And obviously the other two gentlemen will have an opportunity to answer as well.
Well, I decided to run for this particular race at this particular time because there is a vacancy. As you know, there's not an incumbent in the seat. I do feel that I'm the best candidate for the position because I hold a law degree, so I understand how the legislature works. I understand how to draft bills and how that whole process is. I'm a mom of 3 children. I'm also a substitute teacher, so I understand that our school districts need a lot of assistance and a lot of improvement. So that is one of the issues that I'm going to fight and advocate for. Also foreclosures, because I do currently work as a realtor, so particularly in District 3, we have a wide range from low-income apartments all the way up to $300,000-$400,000, but there are a lot of foreclosures in that district, so that's also one of the things that I'm going to work on. So the reason I decided to run, and in addition, I have a lot of volunteerism. The things that I do for the community are truly volunteer. I don't get paid to do them. I'm on several committees. As you mentioned earlier, I volunteer for things like Shade Tree and other nonprofits. So with all of those 3 things, my experience, understanding what the issues are, and already have volunteered and helping the community, I just felt as a legislature, that would be another way that I could assist Nevada and make Nevada a better place to live.
Okay. Steve.
Well, I think this is a very exciting time in Nevada's history. Obviously, the economic downturn was a blow, but I think in some ways it has really clarified some of the structural problems with the way that the state's run, with the way that we allocate resources. And the reason I think it's an exciting time is because I think we're starting to climb out of that recession finally. So we're going to have an opportunity going forward to make those tough decisions and try to remedy some of the structural problems that really were hidden by the economic good times back in the early 2000s. So I'm very excited to be part of that process. I think I have the qualifications and the skills to lead Nevada through these next, hopefully more than 2 years, but however long the people would have me there. In terms of my legislative experience, I was very fortunate last session to go up to the legislature on behalf of the Public Defender's Office and advocate on bills on the Public Defender's Office as well as Clark County. So I think that really gave me an insight into how that process works. It allowed me to meet some of the folks who are up there, to establish those relationships. So I really feel like I'm positioned well to be able to hit the ground running and to be part of these conversations to ensure that Nevada continues to go in the right direction and that we have a strong Nevada for our future.
Joe.
Statistically speaking, there are 2.7 million Nevadans in the census of 2010. 27% are Hispanic Americans, 8.96% are Black or African Americans, and 8.6%, or just 0.3 percentage points below that, are Asian American and Pacific Islanders. There are 3 state senators who are of Hispanic origin. There are also 3 state senators who are of Black or African American origin. There are 5 assemblymen who are Hispanic origin. And there are also 5 assemblymen who are black or African American origin. And guess what? There are no Asian representation. So having said that, I'm hoping that the Asians will come about and say this is the guy that we want to vote. But the question is he qualified? I have an MBA in finance. The allocation of scarce resources, which Nevada really needs, is money. I know how to do that because of my background as an international money market trader. I used to cover $60 billion every single day for the bank. I used to trade for the Cayman branch as well as the New York branches, and that amounted to about $4 to $5 billion every day. I dealt in the international markets, so I needed to know the macroeconomic structure of the United States as well as that of other international companies or countries that we dealt with in Singapore and London. So talking about qualifications as far as economics and finances are concerned and how to deal with it, I think that I have the best qualifications among the other 2 candidates in this district. As far as creating laws are concerned, my 12 years experience with the Association of Adult Group Care Home Providers, we have tried to influence some regulations. So making laws is easy, we can do that. It's the ingredients of making the law that is important. And I believe that I've got the background also in healthcare since I've been dealing with that. So aside from the fact that I would be able to be the first Asian American in the assembly, immigrant in the assembly, to represent the Asian factor. I've also got the, my opinion of course, the best qualifications.
Next question, we're going to start with Steve and then rotate through, so everybody gets a chance to be first and or last. Steve, a lot of us have a lot of concerns about the educational system here in Nevada. It's somewhere around 49th and a half worst in the nation. Worst in the nation, I should say. Interesting that I just made that mistake. What ideas do you have, more on a short-term basis, to try and improve Nevada's educational standing for our children?
Well, first I'd like to say I agree with you. If you look at these lists, we are on the bottom of the list. But that being said, there are some really, really outstanding students here in Nevada. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes. I mean, I hear on a daily basis about, classrooms and kids accomplishing great things. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we do have, I think our top sector of students can compete with anybody in the country. The question is really, what do we do with the students that are lagging behind? In an ideal world, we would have a big magic bucket of money that we could use to implement all sorts of programs. I'm not sure what the projections are going to look like, but short term, what I would like to see is really an emphasis on early education. I think all the studies that you look at really talk about how you have to reach kids when they're young, and that if they don't achieve a certain level by 3rd, 4th grade, it's really, really hard to catch up. So in terms of how practically to do that, I think we do need to expand all-day kindergarten. I think we need to try to reduce class sizes. We need to make sure that the teachers are equipped to deal with students on a one-on-one basis. Not every student's the same. We tend to use a lot of cookie cutter models here. Those don't necessarily work. And then of course we have the issue of folks who don't speak English well. So that needs to be taken care of. I mean, the legislature did appropriate some money last session. Really, it was a drop in the bucket, really 10% of what was needed. So hopefully this session, there's going to be some additional monies to put forward towards those efforts. So I would really like to see, reaching kids as early as possible to help position them for success.
Joe, same question, education. Short
To pretend to know how to solve the educational problem from my perspective would be for me to become a hypocrite because I do not have that particular expertise. However, my statement is the following. If we were to think that there's something wrong with the educational system, that means that our previous legislators did not properly do what they were supposed to do. There are approximately 30% of the legislature right now are people coming from educational backgrounds, other college professors, teachers, and whatnot. And in my opinion, they've already done what they needed to do to try to come up with something. The problem again goes back to economics. We can do this, we can do that, but money has not been there. We have to take a look at the Nevada plan. The Nevada plan is so screwed against Clark County that it's funny. Esmeralda County students in 2012 received $17,000 per student allocated per year, where Clark County only received $5,635 approximately. So comparatively speaking, our students here are not getting enough funding, and therefore we've got to take care of this Nevada plan first and foremost, so we can allocate the scarce resource, again, that I repeat is money. We've got to take a look at that. You can keep on talking about great programs, but unless you've got the correct funding for that, nothing's going to happen. So, to summarize, we've got the great programs, we just need to come up with how to allocate the scarce resources that we have. Are we going to increase taxes? Are we going to do it through the margins tax? Are we going to do it through raising property taxes? These are things that need to be discussed. And nobody seems to want to go up there and totally discuss that. The Nevada plan must be taken care of. It must be revised.
Okay. And Nakia, I'm sure you have no opinions on education considering your background.
Right. As I mentioned earlier, I am a substitute teacher, so that gives me the advantage to travel all over the valley and look at the different schools. There's a few things I would implement. First and foremost, I think for our high school students to have a mentoring program. I currently serve as a mentor they do have a program for at-risk students. However, to me, in a perfect world, if it were open to everybody, just to show students that, hey, education is important. You know, there's opportunities after high school, higher education, encourage these students to go to college. Because one of the things that stick out to me is our graduation rate. Unfortunately, we're at, what, 50%? So that means half of our children are not graduating. So that would be the first thing, a mentoring program for the high school students to, you know, have someone kind of guide them, answer their questions, things like that. The next thing, most definitely early education. However, it should start at the preschool level. Because where we are now, with the majority of the schools having half-day kindergarten, by the time our students get to first grade, they're already behind. They can't read, they can't write their name. And the last thing, and this is of course just my own personal opinion, I don't think it should necessarily be a certain amount per student. The money should be spread as needed. And what I mean by that is, of course, as we know, when we go into the higher communities, for example, Southern Highlands, the teachers have all the resources, the students have all the resources. In fact, they have a surplus of resources. But when we go to West Las Vegas, for example, there's no resources. Just as an example, you can go to Sierra Vista High School. They have all these computers and no one uses them because, of course, students have computers at home. But you go to Clark High School, then there's only 4 computers and everyone is waiting around. So my opinion on that would be, as an example, take the funds from Sierra Vista, who obviously does not need all of those resources, and put it on some of the schools that are lacking the resources so that everyone has an equal advantage. Because in my opinion, unfortunately, the lower income areas, the students, they don't have the same advantage because they're using old textbooks, outdated textbooks, or making photocopies and giving them worksheets. So those are the 3 things that I would focus on a short-term basis.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in? Because I can keep going all night.
Yeah, I have a question.
We'll start with Joe first and then rotate
Okay.
through.
So, how would you answer to a 3rd grader that were their parents probably in the education or their professor in something, that they work in a casino as a dealer that make more money than their profession? And they'll tell you, say, why should I study? I want to be a dealer, or that's our main industry over here. Agree? But yeah, we are not opening up any other industries which lack of qualified people. So how would you go about, say,
Talking to the 3rd grader.
change that, or yeah?
The question, Kevin, is how would I tell a 3rd grader, or how would I answer a 3rd grader? But you also mentioned the fact that about industries and the like, and I wanted to mention something about that, but to just focus on your question, basically, if that was my kid, I would just tell the kid, listen, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now is so that I can provide something for you. The reason why I came to this country is so that I could provide something for you so that you can do something better than what I did. As a matter of fact, although I do have a master's degree in finance and everything else, my daughter is in Johns Hopkins University. It's a lot more than anybody else can probably say, because that is one of the top schools in the country. So she's actually doing what she needs to do. And her father is a PAW, professional ass wiper. I'm doing caregiver work. and doing that work also at Sunday nights and Monday nights, so that I can let my caregiver take off. So I do the dirty work there too, only so that I can make sure that she gets the better education, that the American U.S. education, because that is the concept that they have, that unless you're educated in the U.S., you're nothing. Which of course I beg to disagree. After having achieved what we have achieved, coming from a different country and a different school. But having said that, the third grader, we can make them understand that daddy and mommy are doing this so that you will have a better future. Simple answer. Now, the question there that you also statement that you mentioned was that we don't have enough industries here. That is actually being taken care of right now by the Southern Nevada Economic Council, which Speaker of the House American Patrick has come up with, and they're doing something about that right now, and they're trying to do something for that. It's going to take time, but they're trying to create industries here, which we're supporting. We're attending that. Both Mr. Yeager and myself have attended that, and we've done our own contribution to that. So as far as that's concerned, that is the way, I answered your initial question, but I wanted to let you know too that there is something being done for the future of this country, for the future of this state, sorry.
And how I would answer that, I do have 2 older children that successfully graduated the school district, both at 16 with honors. I've always stressed to my children from toddler that college is a requirement, it's not a choice. What I would say to the 3rd grade student is this: education can only benefit you. For example, I will have them look at the numbers and the statistics and explain, this is how much a person with a high school diploma typically makes, this is what a person with a bachelor's degree typically makes. I would also explain to them, although the casino industry is the top industry here, what is your chance to get into that industry? We have 2.7 million people here, and my understanding of the casino industry is who you know. So I would explain to that 3rd grader, what is your plan B? So let's just say you go to high school, your goal is to be a casino dealer. You go to the casino, you interview, and then you can't get a job. What are you going to do? I would show them different career choices: firefighter, police officer, attorney, doctor. I would tell them you have all these choices, so look at these choices, make a good choice, and make sure you do have a plan if you're not selected to work in the casino industry.
Well, first of all, we should certainly encourage students to chase their dreams. And, I don't think that's unrealistic to think that maybe a student would want to be a dealer in a casino, and that's absolutely fine. But one of the things we can do is we can expose them to other opportunities. One thing that I'm able to do with a group called Project Real is go into schools and talk to kids about what it means to be an attorney, and specifically what it means to be a criminal defense attorney. And they love hearing the stories, they're engaged, they have a lot of questions. Does it mean that they're all going to want to be attorneys? No, absolutely not, but it just exposes them to other opportunities. And certainly we need to encourage everyone here to further their education as much as possible. I mean, it's about critical thinking, because you never know where you're going to end up. And with respect to the casino industry, that's a very good job right now. But frankly, I just don't know what that industry is going to look like when we project 20, 30, 40 years down the road. The casino industry certainly has some challenges in terms of adapting to technology. I think the customer base that used to come and sit down and play a card game or slot machine, that customer base is drying up. They're looking for different experiences. So certainly we want to encourage our young people to have as wide of experience as possible and as much of critical thinking as possible, because it very well may be that they end up working in the casino, but who knows if that job's still going to be there down the road. So, I guess in sum, we need to encourage just as much exposure as possible to what's out there. And I think the best way to do that is either getting people into the classroom or taking the kids out of the classroom to experience different things.
I have a question. In your specific districts, what do you feel is the most broken in the system, and how do you plan to go about it?
And I think Nakia's first on this one,
Right.
down the line.
As I mentioned earlier, the 2 key things that I see in my district is, of course, education and also housing. What I see in my district is many of the schools, and I have visited the majority of them, do need more resources, more funding. The teachers do need additional training. So that would be the first thing I'd be looking at, is education, and then secondly, the housing market. Just my perspective as a realtor, things could be done differently. And I think our legislature should get involved. For example, North Las Vegas had proposed doing a program where they were gonna take the home by eminent domain and allow the homeowner to stay in the home. To me, if you think about it, it's a win-win for everyone. The homeowner gets to stay in their home, the community stays upkept, because we know with the foreclosed homes, what ends up happening, they get trashed, they're boarded up, you know, it just brings the community down. And then the mortgage company benefits because the person continues to pay their mortgage. The people have to have a place to stay, so I've never agreed with the notion of kick the person out, pay all these court fees, walk down the court, the house sits empty, and then now the person's going renting somewhere. Now who does that benefit? So the community is going down, now the homeowner is displaced, and the mortgage companies, they lose. So the two things I would focus on for my district would definitely be education and also housing.
Steve.
I certainly agree with education. I think that's the number one issue that I hear when I talk to folks. And, you know, that to me is the number one issue, the state as a whole, or at least Southern Nevada. But beyond that, I think District 9 is an exciting place. It's a vibrant district because there's so much construction. So many of the houses that were supposed to be built years and years ago are finally going up. If you have a chance to drive around District 9 by Rhodes Ranch, Sunset, Fort Apache, there's all kinds of projects going in. And I think what that emphasizes is we are really lacking in infrastructure in District 9. We have a lot of roads that simply end, they don't connect, we don't have bus infrastructure, and I'm hopeful that as, you know, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to the legislature, one of the things that I can do is be an advocate for public works projects, because I think we're seeing private money come back into District 9, but we also need the public works side of that, you know, to build the traffic lights, to widen the streets, to complete those projects, to potentially bring transportation options out to District 9. And that's something I've heard quite often in talking to folks. So, you know, I don't know sitting right here what the projections are going to be and what funds are going to be available for public works, but to the extent there are some for Southern Nevada, I really intend to push for some of those projects to build up District 9, because I think that's where we're lacking at the moment.
As far as education is concerned, we're one of the lucky ones. The district has, as Nakia was saying, the district is actually good as far as education is concerned. Being elected into the assembly, one looks into the state as a whole. The district itself, although we do represent the district, we are state representatives. And it was my thinking that any kind of problems that would be in that particular area as far as infrastructure was concerned is really the problem of the commission, Clark County Commission, who will take care of the roads and all the other infrastructures. Of course, we will be able to guide them through that, but just to be able to identify what the problems are, we can see that too, but it is for us to guide the local authorities to take care of what they need to take care of there, because we are elected into the state reps to be able to take care of the whole state as part of the representation of that district.
Mike, we're coming up to our time frame. Do you have any last minute questions? Are you sure? Because you usually jump in right now and then we go 10 minutes over.
No.
You're good?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
What about you?
Your issue?
I have a question,
Good.
real quick.
We'll finish up with Kate.
You mentioned transportation. The transportation in that district is horrid. I mean, totally horrid. If you have people who work, I don't know how they go to work. There are no buses, you know, west of this and, you know, south of this and north. What do you see as a solution to that? Because that's directly,
And I think
not you,
Steve's
but
chance to start,
directly in their district,
and then we'll
both.
take through.
Yeah, both of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great comment. You're absolutely right. There's very little in the way of buses. You know, Summerlin, north of us, has bus routes, and even down south of us now has bus routes. But, you know, I think the best we can do is just, you know, build some momentum for that change, let the county commission know about it. I know they have a lot on their plate and there's a lot of demands, but, you know, I've heard that over and over and over again. So, you know, I think as representatives of District 9 and as potential assemblymen in the legislature, we can bring awareness to that we are really lacking down in District 9. You know, we can look at what the projections look like in terms of the index fuel tax, what might be available for public works, and obviously a lot of that is going to be locally. Those decisions are going to be made locally, but I think we do have a role as state legislators in interfacing with the county commission to be able to say, listen, there are a lot of priorities here, but we are really, really hurting. I mean, at minimum, I would like to see some additional bus routes come out that way. Because I've had folks say that, you can't get anywhere, especially if you don't have the ability to drive. You are really limited unless you want to hire a taxi. So I'm hopeful that we can be that voice for change, and we'll cross our fingers that the funding will be there, but I certainly would like to see that for the residents of Assembly District 9.
I can't add anything to that. I have to agree with them 100%.
It's almost as if they think you guys all have a car.
Well, and I think part of that, part of it was things were going well in 2005, 2006, and I think there were a lot of ideas, and things just, we just pressed the pause button. And we need to get back to that mentality of, it's not just about building houses, but what else do we need to service those people? Because there are a lot of folks moving into District 9.
What we can do is actually talk to some of the businesses in the area, especially like Wet and Wild. We could actually ask them to lobby to get a transportation system around their facility so that they can bring in more clients from the different areas who cannot afford transportation and maybe help alleviate that. So that's one idea we could probably use. But I agree with Steve on a lot of the things that he had said. I do not disagree at all with anything that he said. But in addition to that, we can probably do that. Ask the other businesses in the area to create that thing. The Walmart in Fort Apache, for example, and even some of the other businesses outside. So we need to get them to come in and to promote themselves to whoever local authorities, the county commission, that it is.
Nakia.
That actually is not an issue in my particular
Yeah.
district.
No,
Yeah,
Fortunately, we do have proper bus lines for the residents, so the bus or the transportation issue is not really an issue. But I mean, I'm familiar with their district, and as a realtor, typically what people do, unfortunately, when they're looking for a property, they just try to find something that's accessible to the bus. So my guess would be that probably the majority of people that live where there's no bus, they do have a car. Because I get that a lot from the clients, hey, I need to be by a bus route when they're looking for a property.
Okay. Well, Mike is repeatedly showing me that we're right at our time limit. But again, I can't thank you guys enough for coming out tonight.